What's happening, guys? Happy Wednesday! And thank you for joining another special episode of Your Welcome. Okay, let's back up a week ago. I am over here. I'm at the studio. I'm minding my own business. I'm getting ready to come and do a show and talk to you guys. My phone rings. It's John Lewis. Do you guys remember John Lewis? John Lewis was a true pioneer in MMA. This guy was fighting in like 96 and 97, real early on, and I met him in 2002. I had followed his career as a fan, and Randy Couture brought him out. Randy was getting ready to fight somebody, and he brought John Lewis into Team Quest, and John stayed for a week, and he and I hit it off. It was real quick. It was just a week. And I haven't seen him since, but I have known him since 2002. Great guy, and I will tell you this, I would, over the years, be watching TV or watching a movie, and I would see John Lewis. And he was usually playing like the same role in different movies. You know, he's got a unique look, so he's in like a fancy suit with his hands crossed and playing like a bodyguard type in the background, this type. But I would see him all the time, oh, John Lewis, cool. He's in movies. So I get a call from John Lewis, and I have not spoke to him, possibly since 2002, right? The way time flies, I mean, possibly. And he says, hey, John Lewis, and he says, I'm working with a director, and they're doing a movie. They want a John Cena type, but they don't want John Cena. Like, John Cena comes with a stigma, and it's a bad guy role, and blah, blah, blah. I suggested you. I said, okay, great. Well, thank you. That was very nice. And he says, how do you want to do this? All they're looking for is your phone number, and I'm out, and they take it from there. But do you want to talk to them? Do you have a representative you want to talk? What do you want to do? And I said, no, have them call me. So it's fine. And this happens a lot. I must tell you guys, this happens a lot, and the phone call never comes. It just doesn't happen. Somebody's thinking about thinking and meeting about meeting and talking about talking. It just never comes. So it's 5 minutes later. I got to get up and leave the studio before I can come talk to you guys, go in the other room because my phone's ringing from England. And this gentleman jumps on the phone, and I never caught his name. I think his name might have been John, too. He said his name right off John or Jared. He said whatever his name was real fast and moved on and basically represented himself as somebody that works with the movie. And the movie is being made by a woman named Donna Langley. Now, I don't know who Donna Langley is any more than you guys know who Donna Langley is, but he encourages me, and he only tells me a few things. He's real big on, hey, I can't say anything. We got to have a non-disclosure signed before I say anything, but I just want to test your level of interest. And he goes, I'm probably telling you more than I should, but it'll be directed by Clint Eastwood, and there's a $300 million budget. It's going to be the greatest movie of all time. Oh my gosh, I've said too much. Right, it's one of these things. He goes, oh, by the way, just so you know we're real, sometime we get off this phone, go Google Donna Langley. You will see she's the second most powerful, this is his words, second most powerful person in Hollywood. I assume Ari Emanuel to be the most powerful. I don't actually know Hollywood, but that's what the TV show Entourage told me. So she's number two. I guess she's number two to Ari, and who I thought about calling. Just going, hey, let me run this past you. But I Google her, and she was just featured in Forbes magazine. She came in number 2 most successful woman in America, only to Oprah, who was number 1. Okay, great. Whatever, but this happens. 10 minutes later, my phone rings again. I gotta leave the studio again. It's a guy calling back, Jared or whatever his name was, and he goes, hey, by the way, I happen to be right here with Donna. She wants to talk to you. So Donna jumps on the phone. And Donna basically says, hey, look, I don't know who you are or why we're even on the phone, but I need to hear your voice. I do this off of gut reaction. I have to have some level of connection here. Hi, I'm Don. We say whatever we say. It's a pretty quick call. We get off the phone. 2 minutes later, phone rings again, all from England. And all through WhatsApp. I should add that. All through WhatsApp, which I thought was a little bit weird. I thought a big-time movie guy and a multi-billionaire and all that, I thought they would have a phone that was international phone and they didn't have to go through a free downloadable app known as WhatsApp, but this is what's happening. Okay, great. I'm in, and I know it's real because John Lewis said it was real, and he set the whole thing up. I respect John. John respects me. I wouldn't mess with John. John wouldn't mess with me. Just the way it is. So I'm going right along with this. And, okay, when we get off the call, she says, okay, great. I'm in England. It's almost midnight here. We're turning in for the night, but I'm going to call you first thing tomorrow morning. Great. So the next day, I get a phone call, and same deal happens. Dude jumps on the phone. Hey, Donna's right here. Put you on with Donna. So Donna asked me, she says, look, I do not know who you are. And I'm surrounded by actors. I'm out here in Hollywood, and there's people sacrificing. They're working part-time jobs as waiters so that, trying to pursue and smile and get discovered. They have coaches and acting class. Why would I ever hire you? I looked you up. You've never done anything. And she says, and I'm not coming down on you, but these are the questions that I'm going to get asked. And I need to be able to answer them, and I need to know that you have passion. So what she says, she kept using the word passion. And passion can be used multiple ways. That word actually has multiple definitions. Hold that thought. I'm going to circle back to the word passion. She says, I have to know that you have passion. I have to know that when we break this down to our final X amount of candidates for this role, which is a major role, I need to know that you want it and you're going to fight for it. I said, Don, I haven't got the foggiest idea how to respond. I grew up as a wrestler. I turned into a fighter. Real competition, real sacrifice with real battle and real things on the line. I don't respect actors. You're asking me to jump into a pool that I don't respect. I think somebody that wants to go work part-time as a waiter in Beverly Hills, hoping to get discovered so they can go on TV and pretend to be somebody they're not, I think it's weird. So you're asking me to jump in and fight against a pool that I don't respect. I'm out. I am out. Whoever you want to bring them in. Let's fight it out. But that's where it ends with me. I am not an actor. This is not something I do. I'm a dude in Westland, Oregon. That's it. I love it. Oh, Chael, I love it. That's what I needed to hear. And she says, kiss me, baby. And she goes, mwah, and like does this passion. She goes, kiss me passionately. And I go, mwah. And she goes, kiss again, baby. Yes, kiss me passionately. Mwah. And she acts it out. And I go, mwah. Well, on the third time, and at this point I'm committed, but on the third time that we're playing kissy face over the phone, I'm 50% a guy that's trying to impress and potentially get a job. But I'm also 50% a guy that realizes I'm getting set up and this is getting recorded. Sound kind of cool so that when this does get released, you can save some kind of face. Like this is going on because this is a very weird thing to do. But, hold on, but as soon as that's done, she kicks out of it and she goes, okay, that was great. She goes, that's actually an exercise. And we like to put people through that over the phone to make sure they can flip the switch and they can. She had an explanation as to why we just did this little kissing noise. And I went for it. Okay, that I don't know anything about that. Makes sense. I accept that. She says, all right, here's what I need to do. When are you going to be in California? I said, well, I'm going to be in California next week. Be in Anaheim. She said, what are you doing out there? I said, World Heavyweight Championships on the line. Going to call it for ESPN. She goes, okay, but that you're with ESPN. And I said, yeah. She goes, no, I didn't know when you can be in California for me. When can you be on my time? And she goes, what is your rate? What is your time worth? So I throw out a number. And she says, okay, I'll pay that and I want 4 days. Extend your trip, but these are my days. You will be with me. And she says there is going to, and by the way, I should have included this. She has an accent. And I've never placed whether that's British, since she was calling from England, whether it was Scottish, whether it was New Zealand. I never fully placed it. But there's a little bit to be lost in translation because she begins saying, I will take care of accommodations. And she says it's probably a little nicer than what you're used to, which I interpreted means she was going to get a nice room. And she says, we will do everything from the room. And she says, and you understand, there will be passion and there will be discretion and it will be you and me together spending time. You understand this and I am going to pay for this. You understand this? And I said, yeah, I understand. And so we get off the phone. That's it. And the second we got off the phone, I walk in the other room and I tell my wife, I go, I think I was just propositioned for prostitution and I think I just agreed to it. And she's like, sets her coffee down. She's like, well, start from the beginning. What happened? I go, well, Here's what was said, and I can tell you, if I said these words as an American male, if I told someone we were going to be in a hotel, I was going to pay them, there was going to be passion, and there needed to be discretion, any jury in the world is going to say Chael just solicited prostitution. But for some reason, she kind of got away with it, right? She was an older woman, and she had the accent, and Hollywood does weird things, and they were using the word passion earlier, which meant to fight for the role. Open for some interpretation. But I come out, I tell my wife this. I go, yeah, it was kind of weird. And then we had to do this little kissy thing that was like this exercise. And she's like, yeah, listen, I don't know any more about the movie business than you do, but I do know the producer doesn't call the talent. She's like, even if you were Brad Pitt or Will Smith, you're not on the phone with the producer. Your managers are and casting. She's right about that. So, okay, where does the story go from here? She calls back that night. And it was a little bit more of the same. And she started bringing up Dana White. And she started bringing up Scott Coker. And when she was doing this, again, guys, I am 50%. At this point, I'm more like 30% a guy trying to impress a decision maker. And I'm 70% a guy who realizes he's getting set up. But I don't know. And there is a scam that has been around from the beginning of time, and it will be around until the end of time, and it will never stop working, which is, I am rich and I want to give you money. Now, those words have never been spoken by a rich person ever. That's how they got to be rich. They do not then part with their treasure. But the scam's going to work every time. It doesn't matter who you are, how many times you've been hit with it. You will fall every single time. I got a whole bunch of money. Oh, and by the way, I'm powerful. Oh, I'd like to give you some power, and I'd like to give you some money. Okay, great. So at some point in that call, if she's bringing up Coker, she's bringing up Dana, and I realize something's not right here. And whatever trail she's trying to go down, or hoping that I'll say, I'm not falling for this one. But I am on the call, and she says, okay, so my assistant's going to send you this on Monday. You're going to have all the paperwork and the non-disclosures. And she says, and you understand, she goes back to it, this is going to be you and I in a hotel and 4 days and passion and discretion. And she says, oh, and by the way, if you need anything else, if you need a car, you just let me know. And now I know I'm being... So I throw in, I said, yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, I said, get me a Bentley so it matches my other one. And she goes, great, what color? I said, black. She said, okay, great. I'm going to prepare your check. I'm going to get you a check for $60,000. I'm going to get you a Bentley. I will have all of this handled from my assistant, and will be handled Monday. And then she says, now you understand, when I say you're going to be with me, you're not going to be with me. I'm in England. I'm shooting a movie, but you're going to be with my people. I'm going to put my acting coaches, and they're going to work with you, and they're going to report back to me. So everything that gets weird, she finds a way to correct. So you stay on board. So again, I go home, I tell my wife what happened, and she's like, yeah, this is a setup to the highest levels. And I go, I get it. I get that this isn't real, but what's the payoff for them? What's the payoff here on a prank phone call? The kissing, what's the payoff, right? So, okay, where do we go from here? Excuse me. One thing about this, and I have been hooked in many scams, particularly in movie and TV business, where I would get a call from somebody and they're a producer. I could tell you so many stories where it's like this. But they all have one thing in common, which is we're going to put you into a role. It's going to be this major opportunity, but it doesn't start filming for 10 months. It doesn't start filming for a year. Then what ends up happening is you end up becoming that person's slave for the next 10 or 12 months so that you can then get this role. Now, this was very young in my life. Eventually, I turned 28 and realized how this world worked and never fell for it again. But one thing that all of these hooks have in common is there's a period of time where they then have you. And I could share some stories, things that I've had to do. This was going to be Monday, as in 2 days ago. This whole thing started last Wednesday. It's going to come to a finale on Monday where I either get the paperwork or I don't. I either get this non-disclosure or I don't. I either get my travel set up and I'm staying somewhere. staying in LA or I'm not. So, which again would be a little out of line how most of these scams go. So I'm laying in bed Sunday and I decide, you know what? I've Googled this Donna Langley. Why don't I go over to YouTube and type her name in? Because then a video will pop up and I can hear her voice. So that's what I do. And now at that point, the gig is pretty well up. I'm not positive. But when you're a guy that's getting a hustle, you don't ever want to be positive. You just don't want to. Because then you go, okay, I'm a fool. You don't want to do that. So I Google her or I YouTube her and I'm going, man, it could be 10%, 90% no. The gig is, but maybe, the accent and it was a little bit hard to tell. So Monday rolls around. There's no email. There's no non-disclosure. Monday evening rolls around. John Lewis calls. And that was the big thing why I thought that this was, right, before I screamed fire, even when my wife's going, hey, you're being silly here. John Lewis was involved. So when John Lewis calls back and he goes, Chael, he said, we got scammed. And I go, yeah, I kind of had a feeling. He goes, I got to tell you, I'm so sorry. He said, but this guy, the guy involved, who was either John or Jared, he goes, I've known this guy 10 years. Now, I haven't spoke to him for 4 years. So when I got the phone call, I didn't really know the voice. It was something like that. I'm changing it just a little bit. But John had something like this where even though he knew the guy, he didn't know. He didn't talk to him in a while. He didn't know. So he said, yeah. And he told me some other names. One that stood out that you guys would recognize, the wrestler, Bill Goldberg. Right, the wrestler. He was one of these guys, and Goldberg calls John Lewis and goes, yeah, John, she was blowing kisses to me, and she was doing this whole thing. I just started laughing. I go, John, I did the kissy face with her. He goes, yeah, so did I. So we're just laughing. Okay, this is great. So, that's the end of that, right? And then he sends me a link. He forwards me a link and texts me, and this has been going on for a while. I think that, some silver-tongued lady is impersonating this, Donna Langley, and it's this whole thing. Well, no, not over so fast. Guess who calls me later? The FBI. Turns out old Donna Langley isn't crazy about being the president of Universal Pictures and have somebody out there offering jobs, impersonating her, and blowing the kissy face. So I'm like, hey, I'm not your guy. Go talk to somebody else. Plenty of this went around. I'm out. And the reason I'm out is it's a prank phone call. I can get where that could be a big deal to somebody and that somebody called you and I'm out. I grew up on the Jerky Boys. Prank phone calls to me are funny. Some people think they're immature. I think TP in a house is funny. I think that's a harmless prank. Some people think it's vandalism. That's fine. I don't mind a prank phone call. I just don't. I don't get it. I don't really understand what happened here. Maybe they were trying to go down a road and we just never got there. But I'm cool. I'm not in on this. I'm not helping with the investigation. I'm damn sure not pressing charge. It's a prank phone call. It's a prank phone call, guys. You got to call somebody else. And there's plenty of people. Start with Bill Goldberg. At any rate, that has been my week. That was my week, quite frankly. My weekend. Turns out I'm not staying in Anaheim. Turns out there is no Clint Eastwood role in a $300 million movie. But the scam of I have something really great and I'm willing to give it to you lives on. Oh, you know what? So I should include this, by the way. I told you guys that I have been caught up in a number of those in the TV and film business. And my favorite, I got a call from a gentleman from New York. He was in the movie business. And he says, and he had given me work before. I actually got into the Screen Actors Guild. I was on an episode in roughly 2006 of Law and Order. I played Whoopi Goldberg's son. And yes, I was adopted, as I'm sure you could imagine the script said. But at any rate, to get into the SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, what that means is you do a principal role, as opposed to being an extra, and they will define principal role in a few different ways. But one of those ways is if you speak at all, if you say one single word, right? It's like being on a football team in college. You may be on no scholarship. I don't know. You guys may not know this. If you're on a football team in college Division I, if you play one single down, you are now on a full ride. That's how that works. They cannot put you in Division I without having you on scholarships, and they do not do partial scholarships in football like they do with wrestling. In wrestling, you get a 25%, you get 10%, you get 90%. Football, it's full ride or nothing. If you play one down, you're a full ride. Well, Screen Actors Guild is that same way. If you say a single word, you're in. I said 2 words. I went before a judge and I said, not guilty. All right, that was my big foray, but that's relevant to the story because this same guy calls me back. So I know the guy's real. I know I know he can do things. Calls me back and he says, you start growing your hair out. He said, you're going to double Channing Tatum. You're going to be his stunt double, but he's going to have long hair for this role. We start filming in 9 months. You're going to have about 3 months of work. You'll be there every single day, but you don't want to wear a wig. Trust me, this is going to start in the summertime. Hair and makeup and a wig. It's just grow your hair out. I start growing my hair out. So it goes on. And I mean, I got abused on this one. I was getting tickets to fights. There needed to be an introduction somewhere to Dana White. Set me up with Dana White. I need to have a meeting. I'm allowing you to make this introduction because I'm going to put a bunch of Dana's fighters into the movie. He's going to love it. And you're going to look good for being involved in it. I mean, I could go on and I got abused. I got absolutely abused. I had to come in to New York. Before I know it, I got to go to this place called Smith and Lewinsky's. I got to get a corned beef hash with this egg on top. I got to get on the subway, come back, deliver it to him at his house. I mean, I could go on and on, but the con lives on. The way this one ended, I went out and I had a fight. I had a fight in Pennsylvania, and this guy came and supported me at the fight. And my hair was cut. I mean, all these different, my hair. So when the fight ends, it's about 2 a.m. because we're on the East Coast. And so we go to the only place that's open, known as Denny's. And there's about 6 of us, and we're sitting there and we're having breakfast at 2 a.m. This is my after party. We're having the after party, right? And the guy looks up at me in front of everybody, and he goes, man, you don't ever listen to me. I tell you to do something, and you don't listen. I come out here to support you. You got your hair cut. I told you to grow your hair out. You don't want to listen to me. Maybe you don't want to be in the business. He just dresses me down in front of everybody. And nobody at the table knows the whole backstory or what went on. I look up at him very calmly, and I said, yeah, that movie. Not only has that been made, that's been released, and I saw it in DVD form at Blockbuster in my hometown 2 weeks ago. So this 9 months or 10 months of film, and I got abused in those 9 or 10 months. Turned into more like 13 or 14. We just hadn't kept track. Right? It was just, Chael, you go do this, and you have to do this because you're going to double Channing Tatum. So I look up very calmly. Right? I'm happy. I'd won this fight. Everything's great. Not even mad at the guy. But that's how I responded. I go, oh yeah, by the way, movie's done, made, been in the theaters, is now released. Saw it 2 weeks ago, DVD, Blockbuster in my hometown. And he just very calm, and he just came up from me, screaming at me. You know, he's playing like this Don Moffalo, you do it my way or it's the highway. And he just sits back in his chair, and his face and eyes light up, and he simply says, I'm busted. And that's it. That was how he responded. No one at the table knows what's going on other than those, they heard us interact. And we're able to connect enough dots that everybody just started laughing. And we finished our eggs and bacon. I paid the bill, and we got up and left. John Jones came out, and he said that there was no chance the Daniel Cormier trilogy fight happens. Now, this is all part of the game, right? And everybody's got their own formula. I don't know what John's is. I haven't studied the dum-dum, but I studied Anderson Silva very closely, right, for many years. Anderson had the same formula every time, just by example. But Anderson, no matter who the opponent was, would refuse the fight. Absolutely not would refuse the fight. That media would last for X amount of time, and he usually could get about 2 weeks out of it. So as soon as that media would die down that he refused the fight, he would then accept the fight. So then you get another couple of weeks of run out of that. And then before the fight, there was always a story of an injury, and perhaps the fight isn't going to happen. And Anderson would never speak up to calm that down. He would let that media run its cycle, and then he would step back in to let you know he's okay and the fight is going to happen. But every single time, Anderson did pretty good business. But this was his formula. And I'm not even positive that it was on purpose. I think maybe it just happened, but it happened every single time. This was just his process. So when you hear that something isn't going to happen, sure as hell doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It's one of the steps of the process. But I will tell you, to speak on that from that standpoint, I hear a lot of people that Daniel needs that fight. Daniel Cormier needs that fight. I think there's a fair claim to be made there. I think there's a fair claim that Daniel getting that back and fighting Jon Jones clean for the first time. I think that there is a story there, and that would be very fair for the people that wanted to say that Daniel needed that fight back. It would also be very fair to make sure you understand Jon Jones needs that fight. Okay? Jon needs that fight. When you're looking at legacy, the conversation that Jon Jones was the best fighter in the world, that went away. The pound for pound number one. He held that spot for a while. He hasn't held that spot in a meaningful period of time. He had Demetrius Johnson. He had all the failed drug tests. It was just a mess. It was very hard to put him at the top. The way that he's looked upon his return, Jon's in a really good spot. But that conversation has changed to Jon Jones is the best light heavyweight of all time, of which I would agree with, by the way. But it has changed from going from the greatest of all time to the number one current pound for pound. It's still going backwards. It's a wonderful spot, but it's gone backwards and it's got minimized. You now have Israel Adesanya, just by example, coming up. Should he get through Robert Whittaker, which is a whole nother conversation, but Israel Adesanya is going to be the one that grabs the torch and moves that organization forward, for sure. He will become the biggest star, and the talk will quickly be that he is the greatest pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Jon's getting replaced. Now, where this becomes relevant is Jon can't make 185 pounds. So Jon can't ever squash that if he wanted to. This new era that we're going through of this champ thing, or even what Cejudo's trying to do with a champ thing, or what Amanda may end up doing with a champ, it's a very real thing. It's very cool, in my opinion. I think a person should be able to go out and collect as many trophies and as much hardware as they possibly can. Put that on the shelf and live the rest of their life talking about how they got it. Cool thing. It's part of sport, right? I like that they're given that opportunity, but that is catching on, and guys are doing that. And if you want to be remembered for all time and you want to be an all-time great, and you're the one guy that didn't do that, in addition, you're the guy that refused to even try to do that, it's not going to work out for you. You will not be remembered the same. You will not be remembered the same as the Cejudos and the McGregors and the Amandas. Of course, the true greatest of all time, St. Pierre. You just won't. So it is very important that at some point in his career, he change weight classes. Now, when he's off the juice, he is naturally a smaller guy. Just naturally. It used to be about 225, 227. Now he's 215, 217. That's just a reality of it, right? So to go down to 185 is not very realistic. And he's in a tough spot to go up to heavyweight, quite frankly. So he's pretty much the perfect size 205-pounder. So I don't even know that this criticism, or I apologize, I don't know that this dialogue that I'm giving you on Jon right now is a criticism. It's a reality that over time, and he's living it right now, went from the greatest fighter of all time to the current number one, all of that's gone. And now it's of that division. Over time, he's going to have to leave that weight class if he wants to be remembered the same as the people that I just mentioned, and there's more that are coming. This champ thing is a very real thing. So he also needs that fight. If it's at heavyweight, he also needs to expand. He does need to show on some level that he could go out there and compete with Cormier clean, of which I think does make it fun. Because I personally don't think that's the case. The Jon that I'm seeing now is not the Jon that I saw then. That doesn't make it so. That doesn't make it so that I have an opinion. That just makes it fun for me and anybody that happens to agree with me as fight fans to want to see the fight, right? Okay, great. But I do think that it's very relative, and I do think that it's food for thought. And whether it's against Daniel Cormier or it's against Stipe Miocic or it's against neither of them, and it happens in a couple of years. Look, Jon's still got a few years left in his career. I don't think he realizes how quick that clock is winding down. He will not be the world champion at 35 years old. He absolutely will not be. He likely will not even be a main event or a co-main event by 36 years old. By 37 years old, he will be fighting for his place within the sport. That's just the way it goes. He's 31 or 32 now. This whole talk about the youngest champion of all time, that was great, and that was yesterday. Oh, and by the way, what seems like yesterday was a decade ago. Time just goes really quickly. We've all been victim of it too, but it goes really quickly. And time is running out. It's simple math. It's just real simple to go back and look at stats and look at guys were and look when they fell off and look when they weren't, right? And right around that 35, boy, that would be pushing it. 36, you could, just based on the numbers, be all but sure. And 37 may not even still be in the business. That is going to feel like what is tomorrow. I mean, it's going to feel like tomorrow. And there's not a whole bunch of fights in between now and then. There's just not. Even with a busy schedule of 3 a year, you're talking about making that walk 10 more times in your life. Sooner or later, should that even be a thing that he wants to do? And it may not. Quite frankly, it may not. But if that's something that he wants to do and he wants to be able to go head to head in the argument with the St. Pierres and the Cejudos and the Amandas and the McGregors of the world, you got to take that risk. You're going to have to change weights. And I'm telling you now, the dial, it's already changed. From the greatest of all time, it minimized to the greatest pound for that minimized to his light heavyweight division. It's minimized. It's going backwards now. It's getting smaller now. The arenas and the numbers that are coming, it's getting smaller now. If Adesanya beats Whitaker, which is a whole other conversation, I am telling you, he is going to take everything. He's going to sit down at the table and he's going to grab all the chips whether he wants them or not. That is what's going to happen. I think it is very arguable. If I were a promoter and I had to grab one guy who is currently under contract and expect to make a business with him, I think it is very reasonable that one guy that I grab under contract is Adesanya. After that Whitaker fight, should he win, that will no longer even be a conversation. It's going to be Adesanya. And the way this game works is perception is reality. Whoever is perceived to be the best is the best. The end. I think you need to keep it in mind. I think Adesanya's presence and Adesanya's rise is relevant to Daniel Cormier versus John Jones and being done at heavyweight. I do think that it's relevant. I think it's a missing key here. And I think that it is also important if there's a piece of Daniel who's going, listen, I don't need that fight. I don't even know if I want that fight. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if we take him at his word or there's gamesmanship there. But the John Jones-Cormier fight is the biggest fight the sport could make right now. Right now. Only to be rivaled with Conor versus Khabib. If you could, whatever fights we could make right now. If Adesanya beats Whitaker, there is going to be instant talk of Adesanya versus John Jones. And it is going to be huge, and it is going to be hyped, it is going to be sought after. And as big as the Daniel and John is now, I'm telling you, there's a moving part. There's a car coming, and it's coming fast. Its name is Israel Adesanya. And he's looking to take all the chips off the table. So a big fight that I'm looking forward to is Nate Diaz versus Pettis. And for many reasons. For many, many reasons. First off, I like the X's and O's of it, right? Pettis is one of the most dynamic guys ever. By the way, Pettis' ground game is definitely the most underrated in the sport. If you guys go back and you look, you all think of him as this dynamic striker. If you go back and look at his record, I think you would be stunned how many fights, even fights you've seen, but you were more impressed with how many fights he's won by submission. He won the world championship off of a submission, just to remind you. But I love that fight. And then you got Diaz. Diaz is coming at you. Diaz just isn't getting knocked out. That's just not what he does. Diaz is likely not getting knocked down. It's just not what he does. He's durable. Boy, in front of everything else, he's durable. He's in your face. He's long. He's ones and twos, right? Pettis is going to have the kicks. He's going to have the movement. I think we know what we're going to get as far as the fight goes. We're going to have some fun. Should that hit the ground, I think that would also be fun. I would like to see those guys on the ground. Either way, set the X's and O's aside just for a second, because you are going to have some storylines built up. Pettis is on one hell of a roll. Even if you look at his loss to Tony Ferguson, it was an incredible performance. He's on a roll. Diaz, to go back and share a couple of things with him. I have seen him over the years. I realize that he has been out. I see him, though. He comes to the shows. He's backstage. He's cornering somebody. I always go talk. I gave this guy a hug the last time I saw him. I never felt him so hard. I never felt him so strong. I think he's been lifting. The Diaz brothers aren't known for lifting. I think he's been lifting. I just offer you guys that I think you're going to see a stronger Nate Diaz. I've never seen him so strong. You can just look at him and look at his body. He's just you can tell he's been in the gym. This isn't a guy that's been sitting around and sitting on his ass. And that is really relevant. A lot of guys who retire or leave the sport or have an injury or take a break, one of the reasons they have that ring rust or they don't quite look this, they've been late. They haven't done anything. They finally decided they're going to come back. They set 8-10 weeks aside. They trained for a fight. They walked out there and realized, it doesn't really work that way. He's been busy. He's been active. That much I can tell you. Just from seeing him, just from looking at his physical shape, from talking to him briefly, see him about once a month for a meaningful period of time, I will at least give you that insight, that anybody that thinks he's going to come out and be out of step, there's only one way to find out. I am just going to predict that that's not what we're going to see. We're going to see the same Nate Diaz that we always see. He's going to come right out. He's going to be looking to hit you in the mouth, follow up with a cross, and then do it again all night long. Probably take a leg kick or two because he hates defending leg kicks, and I do not know why, but that's just the way that I think we're going to see a fight. I think we're going to see Pettis moving. I think we're going to see Pettis sticking. I think we're going to see some exchange. I just think that we're going to see a really fun fight. I will tell you, for me as a fan, I hope that hits the ground. I really do. I know how much you guys love stand-up battles. I think we're going to see I want to see them on the ground for a period of time. I want to see about 2 or 3 minutes. I would really love to see both positions. I'd love to see Pettis on top. I'd love to see Diaz on top, because that means I see Pettis on bottom. That means you see Diaz on bottom. I'm curious of how they're going to do on the ground. That's going to be some fun. Did you guys ever see, by the way, I have to tell you, did you ever see, it was a Dave Chappelle show, and Dave Chappelle had his brother, and I apologize, Dave Chappelle would have Eddie Murphy's brother, Charlie Murphy, come on and tell stories. And the way this worked from a production standpoint, it was a green screen, Charlie's sitting on a chair, there's a microphone, and he would just tell stories. Then the producers would go back and find the shots, create the shots to then match the stories. But he told us one story. It was really great. Charlie was over at Prince's house. Prince, as in the singer. He's at Prince's house. Prince has a basketball court. Prince challenges Charlie and his buddies to show up to play Prince and his buddies in basketball. So they accept. They're going to go have the game. And Charlie's like, yeah, we didn't even have any clothes. Prince brought us clothes to wear. Next thing we know, we're on the court. Then Charlie goes, turned out Prince could ball. He was good. Made it sound like Prince and his team put a whipping on Charlie's team. But the story culminated. What was so funny is Charlie goes, yeah, when the whole thing was done, he took us inside, made us pancakes. That's how it lays out. But it was hilarious. And they cut to a shot, and there's Prince, and he's flipping pancake, and they're all eating pancakes. I had a similar experience when Matt Lindland and I went out, and we were training with Jake Shields. We were brought in by Jake Shields specifically to train with Jake when Jake was getting ready for St. Pierre. But in one of those days, we went out to Lodi to Nate's gym, and Nate was getting ready for somebody, so we go and we spar with Nate. Now, I have to tell you, Matt and I were teammates. So we sparred the same, we worked out the same, it's how we do things at our gym. But this was our first time at his gym. Before you know it, you're going with Nate Diaz, you are fighting Nate Diaz. Like, before you know it, just a fight breaks out. The intensity at his gym was just more so than what it was at our gym. Okay, great. But when the whole thing's done, Nate takes us next door, bought us all fish tacos. All right, guys, I'm looking at the clock. I got to get out of here. I have had it with you all, but I'll be back on Friday. Until then, I'm Chael Sonnen. Thanks for listening. You're welcome.